Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot onto a creaking deck somewhere in the Caribbean. The year is somewhere between Queen Anne's War and Hope You Brought Oranges, and the smell of roasted goat ribs is practically gluing itself to your nose hairs. The moon's a sickle. The stars look like salt flakes tossed across black velvet. Somewhere below, firelight flickers in a swinging iron cauldron, and above, a lookout sneezes into the wind. Welcome to the last meal before mayhem, pirate style. There's something sticky sweet in the air, molasses and musk. You're standing among men with soot-streaked cheeks and smiles full of bad teeth, some even missing noses. One guy, Tiny Jack, ironically huge, is fanning a rack of ribs over a makeshift grate at the bow. He hums a sea shanty about someone named Bess and a regrettable eel. You haven't even seen the treasure yet, but the real prize tonight is sizzling right in front of you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I want to know if you're snacking on chips or brushing your teeth while we raid some 17th century galley kitchens. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge toward the stern where a crewman is smoking fish with dried orange peels, making the whole ship smell like burnt marmalade. His name is Eli, and he's the unofficial night cook, mainly because he doesn't sleep and doesn't mind burning his fingers. He sprinkles sea salt with ceremonial flair, muttering about curses if it's not done widdershins. You watch closely, unsure if this superstition is meant to ward off scurvy or sea spirits. Possibly both. Historians still argue whether these late-night meals were just about hunger or whether they helped unify a fractious crew before a violent raid. All you know is you're hungry, and Eli just winked at you while grabbing a greasy leg of goat. The firelight glows amber on blackened faces. There's laughter, but it's the tired kind, the sound of people who know what's coming. Some eat like it's their last meal. Some can't eat at all. You chew on roasted breadfruit, which tastes like starch and campfire, and someone passes you a strip of beef jerky hard enough to chip enamel. No cutlery here. You use your fingers and a dagger and wipe your hands on your pants like it's perfectly acceptable, because here it is. Nearby, a crewman named Dagger Pete is smashing limes with a mallet and tossing the pulpy mess into mugs of brackish water. It's not rum, not yet, but it helps, and it tastes vaguely like you're drinking overripe perfume. A slice of lime gets offered to you, and you suck it down with the resigned look of someone trying to seem brave in front of real pirates. And then there's the bread, flat, dry, and pocked with weevils, which you try not to think about as you chew. You tell yourself it's just nutmeg. It's not nutmeg. You look around and see the mix of food cultures clashing in real time. Smoked meats from West Africa, cassava from the indigenous Taino people, cheap cheese stolen from Spanish merchants, and biscuits that were maybe once French. It's a pirate pantry, a culinary mutiny in every bite. You lean against the rail and glance out at the waves. Try not to think about the Spanish brig lying somewhere out there, fat with rum and silver and angry guards. Someone jokes that you should eat fast in case you lose your head later. Hilarious. Back near the mast, Tiny Jack is now ladling a thick stew into wooden bowls. It's pepper pot, spicy, heavy with okra and beef bones, and bubbling so fiercely it could double as tar. You grab a bowl and nearly drop it. Burns right through your calluses. You blow on it, take a sip, and it tastes like fire and salt and maybe some form of weaponized oregano. It's delicious. There's a pause in the air, like everyone's pretending not to look at the moon. Some mutter prayers. Others hum through full mouths. You spot one guy feeding bits of bread to a rat on his shoulder. Nobody seems alarmed by this. In fact, a few are envious. He's probably the only one guaranteed a protein snack mid-battle. Here's a fun fact. Pirates didn't just eat for fun. They had to eat enough to stay strong for days of combat, rowing, or repairing sails in a storm. Their bodies were their tools. If you couldn't climb rigging, swing a cutlass, or aim a musket, you weren't just dead weight. You were dead. And yet, these meals weren't just functional. They were moments of strange, tense camaraderie. A shared Last Supper on a floating death trap. One guy pulls out a fiddle. He's missing an eye, but he plays like a devil, and the other starts stomping, slapping thighs, even juggling half-eaten fish bones. The dancing is chaotic. Someone knocks over the stew, and everyone howls like it's the best joke they've heard all year. You join in. Why not? You're ankle deep in seawater and goat grease, and there's a good chance a cannonball might interrupt your digestion within the next 24 hours. Before long, plates are empty, hands are greasy, and the heat from the galley coals begins to fade. Someone starts cleaning with a rag that looks more like a former sock. A few curl up by barrels. One guy wraps himself in a sailcloth like a burrito and passes out. You stretch your legs and head toward your hammock, your belly full but your nerves gnawing again. The ship rocks gently. The ocean's lullaby is salty and low. And just before you close your eyes, you hear the unmistakable sound of a cork popping from a flask. Eli grins in the dark and whispers, "For courage, not comfort." You drift off wondering if that last bite of pepper pot will still be with you tomorrow when the shouting starts. You wake to the smell of fish guts and tropical sweat. The sun hasn't even risen, but Port Royal is already humming. You're off the ship now, barefoot on crooked cobblestones still slick from last night's ale spills. Market day has begun, loud, bright, and smelling like a stew gone sideways. You push your way through the crowd of early risers, some honest and most very much not, all haggling, shouting, wheeling, dealing, and probably stealing. The food stalls are chaos in motion. On your left, a toothless woman is slapping salted pork onto wooden planks, waving away flies with a banana leaf and yelling, "6 pence or go chew rope." You don't want to chew rope, so you grab a slab that smells halfway between dinner and disaster. You'll need it for the ship stores. To your right, a boy no older than 12 tosses you a chunk of cassava bread. You catch it by reflex and nod. He nods back. Payment? Unknown. But your hands are full and someone's already stolen your pouch. So, you shrug and keep moving. This is where the pirate pantry begins. Not in some secret treasure cove or rotting ship hold, but here, elbow deep in fish scales, mangoes, and shady deals. You got to stock the ship for days, sometimes weeks at sea. And what you choose today may determine whether your crewmates toast you later or quietly mutiny when the beans run out. Salted pork, dried beef, cassava cakes, and sweet potatoes are high on the list. Not because they taste amazing, because they don't spoil when things inevitably go sideways. There's no refrigeration, after all, just barrels, brine, and blind optimism. You pass a fruit vendor who's slicing open a sour orange with the precision of surgeon. She holds one out. "For scurvy," she whispers, "unless you like bleeding gums." You grab 3. Historians still argue whether pirates truly understood scurvy or just knew citrus made your teeth not fall out. Either way, sour fruit became gold at sea. Nearby, a man offers you pickled fish wrapped in palm leaves. You decline politely, only to have a bundle of the stuff shoved into your hand anyway. He cackles. "Gift for the storm," he says, before waddling off with an empty cart and what you think is your old boot. The smell of nutmeg and rum-soaked dates hangs thick in one alley. You wander in and find a merchant selling tiny cakes, black as night and hard as cannonballs. He swears they're delicious once soaked in seawater. You believe him, mostly because he's missing 2 fingers and a customer. You buy one. It weighs more than a musket ball. A few stalls over, you encounter a more familiar face. Eli, the night cook, now bargaining loudly with a spice trader over a sack of dried chilies. "They keep the devils out of the stew," he insists, "and the rats out of the flour." You watch as he adds bay leaves, cracked pepper, and something called gravedigger's root to his growing collection. Fringe ingredient or old superstition? Hard to say. There's a brief scuffle at a rum tent. A pirate with a red sash tries to trade a gold ring for a bottle, but the seller wants coin or dried tobacco instead. You realize quickly that in this world, money is just one currency. Food, flavor, and ferment hold real power. A barrel of pickled cabbage could outrank a silver chalice, especially when you're 3 days into a storm and craving something with a crunch. Your final stop is a small shack near the edge of the wharf. An old woman there sells sea bread, which looks like a flat, stony biscuit and tastes like salted brick. But she claims they'll last a month in the hold and keep the ghost from whispering. You nod, grab 6, and try not to think too hard about the whispering part. By now, your arms are full, your tunic is soaked in orange juice, and you've somehow ended up with a live crab crawling up your leg. You shake it off, toss it into a barrel of others, and figure, why not? Pirate stews aren't picky. Back at the dock, your crewmates are already hauling supplies aboard. A man you don't recognize eyes your haul and mutters, "Hope you brought the chocolate." You didn't. Apparently, someone else was in charge of that. You briefly panic because chocolate, yes, was absolutely part of pirate provisioning. Not the creamy, sweet kind, but gritty, bitter tablets often mixed with chili, cornmeal, or even blood. And yes, historians still argue whether it was mainly ceremonial, medicinal, or just the 1600s version of caffeine. All you know is you're now on chocolate detail next time. As the ship prepares to sail, you help stow the goods. Barrels of dried lentils, hardtack biscuits, salted pork, root vegetables, citrus, spices, dried fish, and weird cakes fill every crevice of the lower hold. You wedge mangoes into netting overhead and make a mental note not to sleep under the pineapple stack unless you want concussion at sea. And just before you climb back aboard, you're handed a small jug with a cork in it. It smells like ginger and fire. Drink it before the waves, the seller says. You nod, take a swig, and immediately feel your eyebrows singe. It's ginger beer, but more like ginger fear. Spicy, sweet, fizzy, and alive. You cough, wipe your mouth, and grin. You're ready. The wind picks up as the gangplank is drawn. Behind you, Port Royal continues its chaos. Bells ringing, dogs barking, vendors cursing. But ahead lies the open sea, a storm or two, and a fat Spanish galleon waiting to be relieved of its rum and dignity. Your belly's not quite full, but your stores are, at least for now. You cross your fingers the mangoes last longer than the biscuits. The hold smells like a barn's armpit on a hot August afternoon. You duck your head as you descend the narrow ladder, avoiding a swinging rope and try not to step on a cat. Yes, there's a cat down here, maybe 2. No one's sure who they belong to, but they eat rats, and that's enough for the crew to look the other way. This is the pantry, or, more accurately, the claustrophobic underworld where the ship's lifeblood is stored. Food, powder, water, and regrettable experiments in fermentation. It's dark, it's damp, and you're pretty sure something just scuttled across your boot. You light a stub of candle and start inspecting barrels. There's a comforting thunk as you knock on one full of hardtack. The biscuits inside could double as masonry. They're dry, durable, and riddled with extra protein, also known as weevils. If you're lucky, the bugs are dead. If not, well, you get the crunch for free. One sailor swears by soaking them in vinegar to kill the flavor and the insects. You might give it a go tomorrow. Next to the hardtack are sacks of dried beans, navy red, and some that look suspiciously like rocks. Someone's drawn a skull on one sack and labeled it Black Death Chili Mix. You make a note to avoid that on an empty stomach. Over by the wall is the pickling section. Turtle meat in thick brine, chopped carrots, onions, and something that might be octopus tentacles, or just a particularly unfortunate root vegetable. The pickling barrels are bound tight, sealed with wax, and soaked in superstition. Eli, who handles the preserves, says opening one too soon is bad luck. Let the beast bubble, he whispers. And you don't ask questions. Historians still argue whether pirates truly relied on pickled sea turtle as a staple or whether it was more of a coastal luxury. Either way, there's no denying its strong smell, slimy texture, and unexplainable ability to make your teeth feel cleaner after chewing. You pry the lid off one and immediately regret it. That's a smell that clings, like betrayal in stew form. Further down, you spot bottles tied off with twine. These are the mystery condiments, thick sauces made from God knows what, ranging in color from oily black to suspicious beige. One is labeled Bosun's Mouth Burner. Another simply says don't. You pick up the don't, shake it, and hear it hiss. You put it back down. Tucked behind the barrels is a stack of root vegetables. Taro, sweet potato, cassava, and yams. They look like they've been forgotten for at least 2 weeks, but that's the plan. These are slow-rot, starchy anchors of pirate cuisine. You grab a cassava tuber, knock the dirt off, and remember the rule. Always peel, always cook. Raw cassava can kill you. Probably not the best bedtime snack. Someone behind you curses as a barrel slips. Water, or maybe vinegar, splashes across the floor. The hold is always slick, always tilting. The trick is to walk with the sway of a ship, like dancing with a drunk elephant, graceful in theory. Overhead, you hear a creak and a chorus of thuds. More barrels coming down. You step aside just in time to avoid getting beaned by a crate labeled dried fruit, maybe edible. You pop the lid and find shriveled mangoes, bananas turned black leather, and what might once have been a guava. You try one. It tastes like dusty sunshine and a hint of rum. Not bad. You hear someone shout from above. Captain's orders to double-check the gunpowder next to the flour. It's a dangerous pairing. One spark from turning dinner into disaster. You walk over, check the barrels, and see that someone's marked the powder kegs with a neat chalk skull. Good. Let's hope no one mistakes it for a spice jar midstorm. There's a hanging net near the ceiling, swaying gently with the ship's motion. Inside, onions, garlic, and dried herbs. Pirates might have had terrible hygiene, but they understood flavor. Or at least the cook did. Eli swears by dried thyme and bay leaf, saying it keeps the meat sweet and the spirits sour. You like the sound of that. Near the stern, under a tarp, you discover a barrel labeled experimental. It's Eli's personal project, some kind of fermented seaweed paste with chilies and dried lime peel. He calls it ocean fire. No one knows what it's for, but it smells like regret and ambition. He offers you a taste. Against better judgment, you dip a finger in. It's spicy. It's salty. It burns your ears. You love it. A little. There's a crate of flatbread from yesterday's market run, still warm when packed. Now it's stiff, dry, and surprisingly satisfying to chew. It crackles like parchment in your mouth. Next to it is a pouch of roasted cacao nibs, tiny, bitter, addictive. Not sweet, but bracing. You pocket a few. Perfect for night watches or nervous nibbling before battle. And then the eggs. Stored in ashes inside wooden boxes, buried for insulation. Not chicken eggs, but sea turtle and sometimes gull. You open a box, sniff cautiously, and decide to leave it be. You're not that brave yet. Finally, at the lowest point of the hold, you find a small locked chest. It's Eli's emergency stash, spices too valuable to share freely. Cinnamon bark, star anise, nutmeg, and a pinch of saffron. He guards it like treasure, and rightly so. These flavors, rare and powerful, can turn bland slop into something that almost makes you forget you're thousands of miles from a decent bakery. You rise from the hold, limbs aching, clothes damp, and stomach surprisingly unsettled. The pantry isn't glamorous. It's not romantic, but it's the heartbeat of the voyage. It's where survival is pickled, salted, and stored in shadows. Before you leave, you hear the unmistakable sound of a rat chewing through a sack. You hiss at it. It scampers. You make a mental note to tell the cat. Above, the sky is bruising into dusk. The breeze smells of salt and promise. Your stomach grumbles, not from hunger, but from a growing understanding. What you eat out here isn't just food. It's fate. The fire under the aft grate burns like an open wound, fed with splinters of old planks and driftwood that once dreamed of being something sturdier than fire kindling. You crouch beside it now, sweat purling along your hairline, watching the cook, Eli, still miraculously awake, balance a black iron pot from chains so it swings like a hypnotic pendulum as the ship rocks side to side. Welcome to the pirate kitchen. It's cramped, it's smoky, and it might just be trying to kill you. The galley, as it's generously called, is little more than a heat-proof box tucked behind the mizzenmast. A hollowed space built on brick and iron, its edges black with soot. It smells thick with every meal ever burned into memory. Eli stirs the pot with a spoon roughly the size of a rowing, or muttering to himself like the stew talks back. You hand him the root vegetables and cassava cakes you helped carry from Port Royal. He grunts in approval, slices them with a rusty blade, and tosses them into the bubbling broth. A piece of pork belly follows, glistening with salt and fate. The smell is instant. It coils around your spine like steam rising from a hot grave. You try not to drool. You fail. The pot swings on a trunnion, a clever contraption that allows the cauldron to pivot and stay level even as the ship leans into the waves. Without it, half the soup would end up in the fire and the other half on your boots. These gimbaled setups were a marvel of early naval cooking, though historians still argue whether pirates invented the trick themselves or stole it from British Navy designs. A crewman passes by, snatches a ladleful, and winces as he gulps. Needs more fire, he grumbles, tossing a dried chili in like it's a challenge. Another one follows suit with a splash of fermented lime brine, insisting it adds zing. You start to realize that pirate cooking is a chaotic democracy. Anyone can flavor the pot, but only Eli decides when it's done. The stew sizzles and thickens. A few cloves of garlic, charred over the flame, are crushed under a boot heel and scraped into the broth. Eli grins like a sorcerer. That's for the rats, he says, though you suspect it's for the sailors more than the pests. You reach for a flatbread, warm from being set near the bricks. It cracks like parchment, but the smell, earthy, smoky, spiced, makes up for the texture. You break off a piece and use it to scoop some stew straight from the edge of the pot. It burns. It sears. It lives. At this moment, the ship rocks hard. Winds shift, maybe a rogue wave, and the entire galley tilts. But that swinging pot, it stays perfectly balanced, steady as a monk in a storm. You blink. Magic? No physics. But in this light, same difference. A chicken clucks somewhere behind you. You turn and see a crate with 3 hens and one very suspicious-looking rooster. They're not pets. They're future meals. One is named Breakfast, and another, more ominously, when we're desperate. Above you, smoke wafts upward into a makeshift chimney fashioned from scrap iron and cut canvas. It only works half the time. The rest, it drifts across the deck, making the helmsman curse and the sails smell like roasted fish guts. Still, it's better than open fires on a wooden ship, which were outlawed on many vessels for obvious, flammable reasons. But pirates? Pirates weren't big on rules. They cooked when they wanted what they wanted, and they did it knowing full well that one gust of wind could turn the galley into a funeral pyre. Yet here you are, watching Eli flick ash off a ladle like he's a royal chef and not a soot-covered madman with a carrot behind one ear. Suddenly, the ship lurches again, and a pot of boiling tar in the corner, used for sealing rope, not seasoning, tilts dangerously. You shove a crate under it to wedge it upright. Eli nods his thanks without looking up. Not the first time tars try to join the soup, he mutters. Somewhere outside, the wind howls and a sail flaps like a desperate flag. Rain might be coming, which means cook now, eat fast, and seal the leftovers in a barrel before Neptune gets ideas. Eli reaches into a pouch tied to his belt and pulls out something wrapped in old waxcloth. He unwraps it with reverence. A wedge of cheese, pale and crumbly, speckled with age. You blink. Cheese at sea? A miracle. He breaks it into the pot. Dutch prize, he says. Stole it off a sloop last month. Aged in their captain's sock drawer, far as I can tell. Historians still debate whether pirates genuinely kept dairy on board or if this was a rare luxury hoarded by higher-ups. Either way, you're eating pirate fondue right now, and it's melting into something creamy, weird, and unforgettable. Eli ladles out bowls. Mismatched, chipped, some made of coconut halves. You grab one, hot as sin, and find a corner near the gun deck to perch. Others gather around, steam rising from their hands, murmuring their approval in low grunts and groans. Tiny Jack eats his with hardtack crumbled on top, like croutons. Dagger Pete dunks a slice of dried pineapple in his, swearing the sweetness makes it sing. You try both. You gag. You try again. You smile. The rain starts, tapping on the deck like a lazy drummer. The galley fire is doused with a splash of seawater. Eli packs up the herbs, wraps the cheese rind, and says something about saving the bones for breakfast broth. You sit back, belly warm, face flushed, bowl empty. Around you, the crew is quiet for the first time today. Spoons scrape. Wind whistles. Somewhere above, the lookout curses a lightning flash. But down here, in the soft amber dark, you feel something almost like peace. And that, in a world of blood, brine, and betrayal, might be the most nourishing thing of all. You step off the gangplank with a thud on a soft, white sand, the kind of powdery beach postcards envy. But you're not here to tan. You're here to forage. The island is unnamed, unclaimed, and, hopefully, uninhabited by anything larger than a crab. Still, you grip your cutlass just a little tighter as you wade ashore, boots instantly damp from surf and curiosity. The smell is all salt and jungle sweetness. Somewhere above, parrots bicker over a figure. Below, the rest of your crewmates scatter across the palm-dotted clearing like raccoons at a campsite. Everyone knows the drill. If it doesn't move, try to eat it. If it does move, try to eat it more carefully. You're hunting food, not treasure, but in the pirate world, the two aren't that far apart. And tonight's dinner depends on what you can trap, stab, shake out of a tree, or pluck from the tidipools without needing Eli's medicinal stash afterward. First target, lobsters. Not the clean, red, restaurant kind. These are jagged, twitchy monsters hiding under rocks in knee-deep coves. You spear one with a sharpened stick after a few near misses, its shell clacking like applause as it fights back. Dinner score, 1 clawed sea demon, and possibly a future scar. Farther along the beach, you and a few mates overturn driftwood logs and find the jackpot, coconut crabs. Huge, angry, and more muscle than meat, but delicious when roasted over a low flame. Eli calls them nature's armored sausage. You grab 2 and toss them in a sack that instantly smells like a fish market in July. At the tree line, mangoes lie in ambush. Overripe and buzzing with flies, yes, but sweet, juicy, and perfect for the stew pot or a rare dessert. You stuff as many as you can into a burlap sling, juice already sticking your fingers together. Nearby, you spot a cluster of green coconuts and take your frustrations out on one with the butt of your blade. It splits, leaks its cloudy nectar, and you drink straight from the shell. It's warm, slightly sour, and tastes like being punched by hydration. Not quite rum, but close enough in the heat. There's something briny in the air, oysters. You follow a squelching trail into the mangroves where twisted roots cradle shallow pools. Embedded in the muck, oysters cling like barnacle treasure. You pry one open with your dagger. It smells like old socks dipped in seawater. Eli swears these things are perfect when smoked. Historians still argue whether pirates actually liked oysters or simply tolerated them as desperate calories. You slurp one down. It's salty, rubbery, and very alive. You grimace. Still better than hardtack. One of your shipmates calls out from further down the beach. He's caught a fat iguana, which he holds up triumphantly by the tail. Jungle chicken, he crows. Eli nods in approval from a distance. Roasted iguana, spiced with garlic and lime, has fed many a pirate camp. The lizard glares at you like it knows this is the end. You mutter an apology. You're not heartless, just hungry. Over by a tidipool, someone's trying to wrangle an octopus with a net made from an old hammock. You admire the effort, even as he gets inked in the face and loses a boot. The octopus wins this round. As the sun begins to drop, you spot an elder crewmate gathering herbs near the rocks. He crushes one between his fingers and waves it under your nose. It smells peppery, sharp, clean. Wild watercress, he says. Good for the gut, bad for the worms. You take a bunch. You find starfruit, soursop, wild peppers no sane man should eat raw, and a clump of something that looks like ginger but smells like feet. You leave that one alone. A loud squawk interrupts the calm. Someone's tried to catch a parrot with a net, and it's gone about as well as expected. The bird escapes, screaming insults that sound suspiciously like Eli's voice. You wonder if the parrot has been learning from the galley for weeks. Wouldn't be the weirdest thing you've seen. Back at camp, fires are already crackling. Tiny Jack is skinning the iguana. Dagger Pete is roasting mango slices over palm fronds. You hand off your haul to Eli, who inspects the loot like a jeweler judging flawed emeralds. He nods. We won't die tonight. Probably. He sets the lobsters on a makeshift grill, slathers them in coconut juice, and sprinkles the wild herbs with a flourish. The crabs are roasted whole, split open at the table like monstrous shrimp. The mangoes are chopped and charred, the oysters smoked in banana leaves until they're tolerable. Even the suspicious watercress gets a spot in the stew. You sit around the fire as the sky turns the color of bruised papaya. The stars flicker on. Someone passes around a cup made from a coconut half filled with seawater, squeezed lime, and one drop of whatever firewater Eli keeps hidden in his boot. You sip. It's revolting. It's perfect. For pirates, foraging was survival, but it was also ritual. A way to reclaim some control over the uncontrollable sea. Historians still debate whether this beach cuisine was common or only a rare indulgence between long hauls. But tonight, under the stars, with roasted coconut crab and mango juice sticky on your chin, it feels like a feast worthy of a governor. You lean back against a driftwood log, full and half-dazed. Someone hums a shanty low and slow. The ocean crashes gently nearby. Even the wind seems to have calmed for dinner. And just as your eyes begin to close, you hear Eli mutter one final note. Don't forget, don't eat the pink berries. They scream on the way down. You nod. You believe him. You decide not to ask. There's a sound you don't expect to hear on a pirate ship. Bleeding. Not from the crew this time, but from the livestock tucked away below deck in the lazarette. That's the ship's storage chamber near the stern. Hot, cramped, and somehow both too loud and too quiet depending on the moment. You open the hatch and descend, greeted by the unmistakable aroma of hay, dung, and panic. Welcome to the floating barn. The first thing you see is a goat. Or, more accurately, the rear end of a goat trying very hard to kick through its wooden pen. It's tethered to a beam with thick rope and glaring at you like you woke it from a nap. There are 3 goats in total. 2 for milk, 1 for eventual sacrifice to the stew pot. Everyone knows which one is which. No one says it aloud. Next to them, a stack of cages rattles with chickens, feathered bundles of anxiety that squawk every time the ship rocks. They provide eggs on good days and emergency protein on bad ones. The hens lay irregularly, and sometimes an egg gets cooked so hard in the tropical heat you can bounce it like a ball. You pick one up. It's warm. Too warm. You set it down again with a gentle note. Then, of course, there's the monkey. He doesn't have a name, because naming him would imply emotional attachment, and no one wants to admit they've bonded with a creature that might become soup. But he's clever, nasty, and currently picking bugs off a goat with disconcerting precision. Dagger Pete insists the monkey saved his life during a storm by shrieking when the rigging was about to snap. Others say he was just bored. Either way, he's earned a stay of execution for now. Livestock at sea might seem strange, but it was a practical reality. Meat doesn't last long in the Caribbean sun. Salted or smoked, sure, but fresh meat? That required living inventory. Chickens were the easiest to manage. Goats were tougher, but offered milk, cheese, if you had the nerve to make it, and the occasional morale boost when someone tried to ride one during rum hour. And the monkey? Well, that was probably an accident. But now he's part of the crew. You duck under a beam and make your way to the water trough, where the animals drink the same stale barrel water you do, just with fewer complaints. The ship's motion means bowls and buckets are tied down with rope nets. You refill the trough with a ladle and a prayer. Try not to think about the fact that water's already rationed. Every drop the goat drinks is one less for you. You and the goat share a look. It is not friendly. Eli comes down the ladder, carrying a bundle of banana peels and carrot tops. Feeds low, he mutters. Might have to share dinner scraps. You help scatter the slop into wooden bins, and the chickens descend like feathery piranhas. One goat nuzzles your leg. Is it affection? Hunger? A pre-bite assessment? Historians still argue whether pirates regularly milked their animals or just kept them until a special occasion. You reach for the udder anyway, and the goat kicks a bucket straight into your shin. Verdict: she's not in the mood. Further into the lazarette, you find a sack of hay that smells more like mold than grass. It's the last of a shore-stuffed feed. The rest is long gone, eaten or thrown overboard during a storm. The animals aren't just hungry, they're testy. You whisper something soothing, but the monkey spits a mango seed in your direction. You stand corrected. They are not soothed. Tiny Jack appears with a coil of rope and a haunted look. Captain says if we don't take that brig tomorrow, the stew gets a new guest. He points at the plumpest goat. You both nod grimly. You take a moment to reflect. Strange, isn't it? How a floating pirate crew still depended on barnyard beasts for survival. The pirate life wasn't endless rum and plunder. It was goats, chickens, monkey screams at midnight, and stepping in warm dung in the dark. Someone once tried to keep a pig on board. That ended in tragedy, though the bacon was reportedly excellent. Up above, the light changes. The golden hue of early evening filters through the grates. You hear the bosun shouting something about reefing sails. You don't care. Down here, it's still the animal kingdom. You offer a chicken a piece of cassava bread. She stares at it, pecks twice, then resumes pooping on a cannonball. Pirates and poultry, not a graceful coexistence. You lean against a beam and take a bite of your own dinner. Jerk fish and a tough breadfruit fritter. The monkey watches you like he's judging your seasoning choices. You ignore him and chew louder. One of the goats lets out a long, tragic bleat. You nod sympathetically. Everyone's tired of beans and biscuits. Eli squats next to you and pulls a flask from his belt. "One nip," he asks. You do. It tastes like fermented pineapple and regret, but it numbs the goat's smell, so that's a win. He looks around the lazarette and sighs. You know, back when I sailed under Calico Jack, we had a turkey. Named it Judith. Loudest thing on the ship. We ate her on Christmas. Still haunts my dreams. You nod. You believe him. Above you, boots thud against the deck. The ship tilts slightly. Wind's picking up. You know what that means. Storm or battle or both. You help Eli tie the cages tighter, secure the goat ropes, and hang a lantern from a nail to keep the shadows at bay. As you climb back to the main deck, you pause and glance down at the animals. Tired, anxious, and utterly essential. They're food, sure, but they're also continuity. A reminder of land, of hearth, of something not soaked in salt and blood. The monkey flips you off on the way out. You deserve that. The deck quakes under your boots as the grappling hooks dig in. The prize is in sight. A bloated Spanish merchantman just ripe for the plundering. But you're not eyeing the captain's gold or the gun deck's iron. No, your target is below, where the real treasure lies. Pantries stuffed with foreign goods, sacks of sugar, wheels of cheese, and, if you're lucky, chocolate wrapped like contraband. The chaos of the boarding begins. Pistols fire. Blades clang. Somewhere a man screams theatrically, probably Dagger Pete again. You duck under a swinging rope, clamber over the gunwale, and land on the deck of the enemy ship with a thump and a curse. You don't even wait for the official all clear. You've got a job. Find a food hold and get it back to Eli before the cook starts serving barnacles and bitterness again. The Spanish galley's interior is shockingly tidy. Ornate carvings line the hallway. Fancy woodwork totally wasted on cannon fodder. You navigate by smell. The unmistakable scent of aging cheese, dried meats, and exotic spices wafts through a narrow corridor. Jackpot. You wrench open a hatch, descend a ladder slick with something that better be molasses, and land ankle deep in a storage room so fragrant it practically slaps you. There's cinnamon in the air, and something else, something rich and earthy. Your lantern flickers across barrels stamped with royal insignia. You pry one open. Sugar. Pure, crystalline, and probably worth a ransom on its own. You dip your fingers in. It melts like treasure on your tongue. No wonder pirates risked it all. This was gold you could eat. Beside the sugar, cheese wheels. Big, bloated, and crusted with salt. You slice into one and immediately regret it. It's sharp, musky, and smells like defeat. Someone on the Spanish side must have liked strong flavors. You cut off a wedge anyway. Eli might turn it into a sauce if he's feeling masochistic. Then in a locked chest, you find it. The real loot. Wrapped in thick linen and tied with red twine. Dark brown tablets shaped like small bricks. They're chalky. Firm. Smell of earth and spice. Chocolate, but not the sweet, creamy kind you know. This is zacatl, bitter, sacred, and meant to be grated into hot water with chilies and maize. Historians still argue whether pirates drank it regularly or just bartered it to the highest bidder. But you know one thing. Tonight, you're having pirate cocoa. You grab as many as you can carry, stuffing them into a canvas bag already full of dried figs, rice, and a small jar labeled Azucar Picante. You're not sure what it is. You assume it's spicy sugar. You don't care. It's yours now. Back topside. The smoke is clearing and the Spaniards are surrendering. A crewman you barely know hands you a burlap sack and says, "Galley's clear. Take what you can." You nod and dart back below, scavenging more. Saffron in a tiny pouch, some kind of salted fish wrapped in palm bark, and jars of pickled onions so tightly sealed it takes a knife and 2 curse words to pry one open. You slather some on a crust of old bread. It's vinegary, pungent, and unexpectedly delicious. You make a note to keep 1 jar for yourself before Eli sees it. You're loading your bounty into a crate when you hear shouting. One of the Spaniards is screaming about something muy especial down below. You follow him through a tangle of ropes and crates to a hidden cabinet. Inside, a cured ham, deep red, glistening with fat, tied with a ribbon. It looks like something that should be escorted by guards. He's weeping. You take it anyway. Back on your own ship, the mood is giddy and disbelieving. You toss the chocolate tablets to Eli like treasure. He catches one, sniffs it, and grins. "We feast tonight," he says. Or, "We die trying." He immediately gets to work, grating chocolate into a kettle, adding water, cayenne, and a bit of dried orange peel. You help roast slices of the cured ham over a fire that's still sizzling from a lightning strike earlier. You pretend not to notice the smell of scorched wood nearby. The cheese gets cubed and soaked in spiced vinegar. The figs are smashed into a paste and folded into cassava flour for makeshift tarts. Someone even finds a bottle of olive oil and dances with it like it's a long-lost lover. The ham is sliced paper thin and melts on your tongue. It's salty, smoky, and criminally good. Eli's cocoa is thick, bitter, with a bite of heat at the end that curls your toes. You slurp it from a dented tin mug while perched on a powder keg, which might not be the safest seat, but you're not moving. Around you, the crew eats like kings. The monkey steals a fig tart. No one bothers to stop him. Tiny Jack shouts that it's the best meal since Tortuga. Someone raises a toast to Saint Chocolate. And Eli, beaming, covered in sweat and spices, murmurs, "This is what makes war worth it." Historians will never agree on whether food or fortune was the bigger draw for pirates. But tonight, with fig on your chin, cocoa on your tongue, and the scent of saffron in your hair, you know your answer. You lean back against the mast, eyes closing, belly full. No gold, no jewels, just good stolen food and the sense that, for once, the sea has given more than it's taken. The barrels hiss when you nudge them. Not like snakes, more like something alive, fermenting, bubbling, plotting. You're in the storage corner near the bow, wedged between spare sailcloth and a broken wheel. And what you're looking at are makeshift fermenters. Pineapples, guavas, and sugarcane mash stewing themselves in a pirate punch. The air smells like overripe fruit and caution. No one talks about these barrels officially. The quartermaster denies their existence. The captain pretends not to notice. But you all know they're here. And they're special. Because when the rum runs low, or is held hostage by naval rations, you need a backup plan. Enter Ship Brewed Fruit Fizz. Dangerous, volatile, and just this side of criminal science. You unscrew the cork on the smallest barrel. It whistles. A thick foam creeps up the edge and nearly spills. You catch it with a dirty rag and take a sniff. It's sweet, sharp, fizzy. The pineapple dominates, fermented just past ripe into a kind of pirate kombucha, if kombucha could blind you or make you think sea ghosts are real. Eli leans over your shoulder and snorts. Don't drink it standing up. You take a sip anyway. The flavor hits hard, like a punch from a tropical thunder god. It's sweet at first, then bitter, then weirdly spicy. It tickles the nose, burns the throat, and settles like warm cannon smoke in your chest. You cough. Eli slaps your back. Told you, this stuff, often called swizzle or kill devil, was the product of necessity and boredom. Pirates couldn't always rely on stolen rum. and official rum rations were tightly monitored. So they made their own. Pineapple was common, guava if they were lucky, and sugarcane if they'd recently raided a plantation ship. Add time, warmth, and blind faith, and you've got pirate moonshine in a barrel. Historians still argue whether these ferments were intentional brews or accidental disasters pirates just refused to throw out. Either way, it became a kind of secret ritual. A bottle would appear during quiet nights or anxious pre-battle meals. One sip passed around. A laugh. A cough. A temporary cure for the horrors of the job. You pass a mug to Tiny Jack, who knocks it back like water and immediately hiccups a small fire. He nods approvingly. That'll do. In another barrel, someone's tried adding coconut milk and cinnamon bark. The result is chunky. The smell suggests it could either heal wounds or start one. Dagger Pete calls it jungle eggnog. You refuse to touch it. The monkey does. He licks the froth, twitches, then climbs the rigging upside down for an hour. No one's sure if he's drunk or possessed. Maybe both. One of the sailors brings over a bundle of sugarcane they snagged during the last raid. It's chopped into short sticks and stuffed into the newest batch. You all watch as it starts to bubble almost immediately. Eli scribbles something in a stained notebook. If this explodes, I want credit. You help seal the top with wax and cloth, tying it with rope and hanging a small carved skull in the front. Superstition? Sure, but no one wants to drink from cursed batch. Again, fermentation on a pirate ship is equal parts chemistry and desperation. The barrels aren't marked. Ingredients change depending on who dumps what into them. One crewman admits to tossing a mango in 3 weeks ago just to see what had happened. No one's opened that one since. It breathes. You let it be. That night, the crew gathers near the aft deck for testing. A sort of informal tasting event hosted by Eli and monitored by the monkey, who is now taken to wearing a tiny bandana and seems to believe he's in charge. Mugs are ladled out. The smell is divine, sweet, tropical, lightly fermented. You sip carefully this time. It's better. Still strong but smooth now. Like drinking fire wrapped in velvet. A few of the older crew start humming a sea shanty. The mood softens. Laughter spills easier. The ship seems less creaky. Eli announces he's going to bottle the best batch and call it Witch's Breath. You applaud. Someone else suggests cannon fruit. Another votes for don't drink this. The debate continues until someone sloshes too close to a lantern and nearly sets their shirt ablaze. Fun's over. Bottles get corked. Mugs stashed. And the ferments tucked safely away beneath the netting again. The sky is velvet black now. Stars like shattered glass overhead. You sit near the stern rail, swirling the last of your mug, feeling the buzz settle in. It's not rum. It's not even technically legal in most countries. But it's yours. Brewed by your crew with your stolen fruit under your rolling sky. You think about all the ships that never got this far, sunk in storms, caught by Navy fleets, torn apart by mutiny. And here you are, sipping pineapple fizz under a moon that looks almost kind. There's something sacred in it, even if it started with someone forgetting a fruit crate in the sun. One of the barrels shifts suddenly, groaning like a beast. You all freeze. Then a loud pop. The cloth plug gives, foam pours down the side, and everyone cheers. She's ready, someone yells. Eli grins and says, we'll open her after the next raid. Celebration punch. You raise your mug to that. If you survive, you drink. If you don't, well, you hope someone toasts you with the good stuff. The night winds hum through the sails, and the sea stretches wide and dark ahead. Somewhere out there, danger. But here, for now, sweetness ferments in the shadows. Bubbling, waiting, growing stronger. Just like you. The smell hits you before the cook does. A sharp, earthy stench somewhere between old bark and burnt tea leaves. You gag a little. Eli just shrugs and offers you a hard, flat biscuit the color of mud and the consistency of a roofing tile. For the ague, he says, as if that's all the explanation you need. You stare at it. What's in this? He grins. Cinchona bark, dried lime peel, maybe shoe leather. You laugh, but he doesn't. This, apparently, is medicine. Or at least the pirate version. Because while cutlasses and cannons got the glory, it was these bitter, foul-tasting morsels that try to keep the crew alive through fevers, infections, and all the slow-burning tortures that came from being stuck on a floating wooden box under a tropical sun. You nibble the biscuit. It tastes like tree and betrayal. The ague, what we now call malaria or sometimes dengue, was the bane of every sailor. The Caribbean was paradise only if you ignored the mosquitoes. And pirates, who spent days hiding in mangroves, swamps, and damp coastal shallows waiting to ambush merchant ships, caught more than just silver. So, cinchona, sourced from South America, it was the bark of a tree that somehow dulled the fever's bite. Historians still argue whether pirates actually understood its medical value or just copied it from indigenous peoples and European ships. Either way, they used it, often ground into powder, sometimes baked into cakes, and almost always forced on you when you least wanted it. Eli hands you a second biscuit and a mug of something greenish. Drink this too. Bay leaf tea with sage. Helps it go down. It doesn't. He insists it'll sweat the sickness out. You feel like it's sweating your soul out. Nearby, someone's soaking gauze in rum for a tooth extraction. The patient, a wiry man named Crow, grips a cannonball between his knees and stares at the sky like he's already halfway to the next life. The surgeon, who is either drunk or inspired, yanks. The scream is brief. The silence that follows is reverent. Toothaches were the pirate's plague. No sugar-free snacks, no brushes, just salted meat and hardtack chewing holes in your gums. A tooth gone bad meant infection. Infection meant death, unless someone braved the pliers and hoped for mercy. That's where the rum came in. Medicinal, sort of. You sit near the galley fire, chewing slowly on a piece of ginger that Eli swears will calm the guts and banish the worms. He doesn't elaborate on whether the worms are metaphorical or literal. You don't ask. Nearby, Tiny Jack is mixing what he calls a pirate poultice, crushed garlic, powdered charcoal, and seawater slapped onto a blistered toe like a curse. You watch in morbid fascination. He grits his teeth, burns like a Spanish musket, but it works. You believe him mostly because his toenail just fell off and he's still standing. Then there's the vinegar, used for everything, cleaning wounds, rinsing spoons to lysine G hammocks, and even dabbing on sunburn. One man, sun-scorched and red as a boiled crab, slathers himself in vinegar and crushed mint leaves. He smells like a salad. He says it helps. He's also twitching. Not all pirate remedies were so organic. Some came from raided ships. Tiny glass vials with unreadable labels, powders that fizzed in water, or amber bottles that smelled like formaldehyde and terror. Most of them went into Eli's special drawer, which was actually a rotted barrel with a lock on it. One day, someone tried a paste made from ground coral, clamshells, and honey to treat a cut. It hardened into a shell, which seemed promising until it turned black and smelled like fish death. They switched back to rum after that. Despite the horror stories, pirates weren't clueless. They often had more practical knowledge of illness than their Navy counterparts. They knew moldy bread could clean a wound. They understood rest and hydration were key. They used citrus long before vitamin C got its spotlight. And while bleeding was still a thing, yes, they tried that too. Many preferred herbal brews, spicy stews, and long naps under wet rags. Tonight, someone's come down with chills. Eli brews a hot punch with cinnamon, clove, and black pepper boiled in water, then pours in just enough rum to ignite your sinuses. You watch the steam curl like incense. It smells like Christmas in hell. You drink a little. Your throat protests. Your stomach agrees. Dagger Pete limps by, a bandage on one leg and a grin full of missing teeth. Eli, fix me, he says. You raise an eyebrow. He wrapped my leg in cabbage. You raise the other eyebrow, then lit it on fire. Eli, overhearing, shrugs. Only a little fire. You lie down near the galley coals, the warmth seeping into your bones. The cinchona biscuits sit heavy in your gut. The tea has turned your tongue numb. But somehow, you feel a little better, or at least distracted. Above, the sails flap. The stars twinkle without pity. The wind shifts. And for a moment, in this strange floating infirmary of bark biscuits, vinegar baths, and cabbage torches, you feel almost safe. Almost. The sea is still tonight, unsettlingly so. Even the creaking of the mast sounds muffled. You're huddled near the galley, bowl in hand, as Eli ladles out a steaming stew that smells like fire and something slightly illegal. Pepper pot, he says, for strength, for luck, for the storm. You squint into your bowl. Floating inside is a mess of okra, goat, and something that might be char banana. The broth is so dark it's nearly black, flecked with red oil and a constellation of green herbs. You inhale. It hits like peppery thunder. You cough. Eli grins. Tonight is the feast before the storm, a pirate tradition, part superstition, part necessity. You eat big because you might not eat again for days. You eat hot because heat staves off the chill of fear. And you eat together because no one wants to face cannonballs on an empty stomach. Historians still argue whether pirate crews truly held pre-battle feasts or if these were just larger-than-usual meals brought on by nerves and dwindling food stores. But here and now, with the Spanish galleon visible on the horizon and the air heavy with storm scent, you know this meal matters. You take a bite. The stew hits you in waves. First, the meat, rich, tender, spiced to the edge of pain. Then the okra, slime-slick but surprisingly comforting. Finally, a mouthful of broth that nearly makes your nose bleed. What's in this? You croak. Gunpowder, Eli says casually. You freeze. Like, actual gunpowder? Tiny bit, he winks. Just enough to give a kick. You stare at your bowl. He's probably joking. Probably. Tiny Jack is already on his second helping, spooning the stew into chunks of stale bread to make something resembling a spicy sandwich. Dagger Pete is crying openly, but still eating. One of the new deckhands passes out mid-bite, face planted in his bowl. No one stops chewing. Someone starts singing. A low, growling tune about a sea, witch, and a captain's missing toe. The chorus catches on like wildfire. You join in between bites, your voice rough but warm. The song drowns out the wind, the silence, the fear. This isn't just dinner. It's armor. Eli walks around, pouring something from a clay jug into each bowl. It smells like rum, but bites like vinegar. He claims it's a spirit infusion. Ginger, citrus peel, and whatever he stole from the Spanish pantry. You swirl it into your stew. It hisses slightly. Probably fine. The monkey appears, perched on the boom, nibbling on what looks like a roasted crab leg. No one questions how he got it. He's earned his place. You glance out at the dark horizon. Storm clouds gather like bruises. Lightning flickers in the distance. And beyond that, your target. A fat Spanish galleon brimming with rum and gold, flanked by guns and possibly divine protection. But your crew? Your crew has pepper pot stew, singed eyebrows, and stomachs full of madness. You're ready. Before battle, pirates believed in rituals. Not prayers, not exactly, but signs, omens, and meals laced with meaning. The stew had to simmer for hours. The meat had to be cut with the captain's knife. And someone, always someone, had to burn their tongue on the first taste. Tonight, that someone was you. Your lips still tingle. As the pot empties, Eli scrapes the last bits into a smaller tin and stows in the hold. Victory stew, he says. Save some for after. If we survive. You like that. A taste of hope, set aside like a dessert that might never come. You help clean up, wiping spoons on rags and tipping grease into the sea. The deck is glowing now, lanterns swinging, the wood slick with mist. The ship rocks harder, wind licking the sails like a warning. The calm is gone. Tiny Jack buckles his belt tighter. One good burp, and I'll blow the cannon by accident, he jokes. You check your weapons, not just for readiness, but to ensure your dinner doesn't spill out mid-fight. It's a real concern. The stew is in your throat like a living thing. Above, the captain yells. Battle stations. But no one moves just yet. There's a moment, this quiet heartbeat between feast and fury, when the crew breathes together. Full bellies, dry boots, heads bowed, not in prayer but digestion. Dagger Pete slaps your shoulder. You ever had a stew so good it made you want to live? You nod. You have now. The storm's fingers finally reach the sails. Rain sprinkles. The sea swells. And you take your place on deck, hand on cutlass, heart on fire, guts full of questionable broth and bravado. One last taste lingers on your tongue. Spice, smoke, and something like victory. The sky is the color of bruised pewter when you rise. No birds, no banter, just the hush of anticipation, the kind that tastes like iron and salt. Today's the day. You scarf down the last of last night's plantain fritters. Cold, a little oily, still sweet. You don't even care that they're soggy. You just need something in your stomach that isn't dread. Around you, the crew is tense and twitchy, checking ropes, sharpening blades, fastening belts and boots. Someone's already thrown up. Twice. Breakfast before battle is quick, dirty, and usually regrettable. The galley's fire is cold. No time for stew. Instead, Eli's handing out leftover flatbread wrapped around fried scraps from last night's goat pot. You take one. It's greasy, salty, and clings to your teeth like a guilty memory. Perfect. Coffee? Not really, but close enough. The quartermaster has boiled something resembling black water from a sack of scorched beans looted months ago. You sip it from a wooden cup that smells faintly of fish. It's bitter. It's bracing. It slaps you awake better than a cannon ever could. Next to the mess table, a small crate of lemons and limes has been opened. The last of your citrus stash. Everyone gets a wedge. You suck yours down like a shot. It bites the tongue and whispers, "Stay alive." Pirates didn't eat before a raid for pleasure. They ate to steel their nerves, to quiet the shaking. Historians still argue whether these pre-dawn meals were communal or solitary, but there's no doubt they happened. No one charges a galleon on an empty gut unless they want to black out mid-swing. You head to the rail, chewing the last of your fritter, when you see the powder crates being cracked open. Black powder, sulfurous and gritty, is handed out like sugar. It clings to your fingers, stains your tunic, gets in your teeth when the wind kicks up. One sailor licks his fingertips after loading cartridges. "Gives me bite," he says. You nod, though you wonder how many teeth he's got left. Then, something sacred. A tiny bottle passed hand to hand. No label, just a black wax seal and the smell of death and cinnamon. Eli calls it wake water, a tincture of rum, coffee, and cloves. It's taken by the thimbleful. You sip yours and feel it reach your soul. You hiccup. Your vision sharpens. You don't blink for 30 seconds. Nearby, Tiny Jack is chewing on roasted cassava and chanting something under his breath. Dagger Pete pours his wake water over a stale biscuit and eats it like it's a gourmet sponge. Everyone's got their ritual. You wrap a plantain slice in a bit of salt pork and chew slow, letting the grease calm your stomach. Someone's loading grappling hooks. Someone else is painting their face with soot. The monkey is asleep in the crow's nest, wrapped in a stolen scarf. You envy him. The wind picks up. Sails crack like thunder. You feel the ship lurch forward. The prize is in view. A fat galleon, barely moving, its hull promising rum, gold, and maybe a better kind of breakfast tomorrow. Your captain calls out orders. Voices raise. Steel glints. But your hands? They're steady. Because you ate. Because you drank. Because Eli gave you something hot and strange and slightly illegal to settle your nerves. You grip the rope net, waiting for the signal. The last bite of cassava still on your tongue, mingled with lime and smoke. It grounds you. And then it happens. The cry goes up. The grapples fly. You leap from the rail with a shout in your throat and crumbs on your chin. Midair, heart racing, blade drawn, you think, glad I ate first. The battle was supposed to be quick. It wasn't. Now you're standing on the deck, panting, blood on your sleeve, not yours probably, and your mouth tastes like rope and rage. You're alive, barely, and thirsty enough to drink bilge water. But the barrels of rum? Still sealed, untouched, locked away by order of the captain until victory is certain, which at this moment it very much is not. You slump beside the main mast, your hand trembling as you reach for your water flask. It's warm, slightly metallic, and smells faintly of old lemons. You take a swig. It's sour lime water, barely drinkable, but keeps your tongue from turning to dust. Around you, men are coughing, groaning, patching up minor wounds with rags soaked in vinegar. The monkey is nowhere to be seen. Smart. Eli stumbles over, holding what might be the world's saddest sandwich. 2 crackers stuck together with mashed plantain. No rum. he mutters, sitting beside you. Captain's orders. He doesn't sound mad. He sounds resigned. Rum is the pirate's fuel, the myth, the miracle, and right now, it's being rationed with military precision. You can't even smell it in the air. Just sweat, tar, and the lingering sting of musket smoke. Historians still debate whether pirate captains enforced sober battles or if this kind of restraint was rare. But on this ship, the rule is ironclad. No rum until the prize is ours. So for now, you sip your lime water and chew on a stale biscuit like it's penance. The crew is restless. Eyes dart toward the locked storeroom. Some mutter about cracking it open early. Dagger Pete licks his lips and whispers, just a dram. For strength, Eli throws a mango peel at his head. Instead, you get what Eli calls battle broth. It's hot water, a splash of vinegar, and a sprig of dried mint. No meat, no flavor, but it's warm, and it feels like you're doing something to keep going. You gulp it down, grateful for the illusion of comfort. You wander to the gun deck, helping reload a cannon. Your arms feel like logs. Your stomach growls. Someone passes you a handful of roasted corn kernels. Chewy, half-burned, and perfect. You crunch them slowly, savoring each one like it's dessert. Back on deck, the wind shifts. You hear shouting in Spanish, desperate, angry. The enemy isn't beaten yet. The captain refuses to celebrate. The rum stays locked. Eli starts handing out sour lozenges he made from boiled citrus rinds and sugar. Suck on it, he says. Keeps your head clear. You obey. It tastes like citrus-flavored regret, but it wakes you up. And then there's the salt. Not seasoning, but chunks of rock salt kept in a cloth bag. You take a pinch and let it dissolve on your tongue. It helps. Keeps the dizziness at bay. One sailor snorts a little for good luck. No one judges him. You help Eli carry a barrel of water to the wounded. It sloshes ominously, almost gone. He dips a ladle, adds a sprig of crushed bay leaf, and passes it around like communion. Better than wine, he jokes. No one laughs. Someone tries to sing a shanty. They're quickly shushed. As the ship creaks and groans beneath your feet, you glance toward the storeroom again. Inside, the real prize. Barrels of rum, casks of wine, maybe even brandy filched from a Spanish officer's table. But they're still behind that iron latch. And you get it. Drinking now would dull your edge, drown your courage. There's a time for firewater. But this is the time for gritted teeth and salt-crusted resolve. Tiny Jack eats a piece of raw onion and calls it bravery food. You try it. You cry. Definitely brave. You chew another lime wedge. You spit the seeds overboard. You wipe your brow with a rag soaked in herbal vinegar. You're not drunk. You're not happy. But you're alive. And you're waiting. Just before sunset, the tide of battle shifts. A cheer rises from the forward deck. One of your men has reached the enemy helm. The Spanish captain is down. The galleon is yours. But the captain still doesn't unlock the rum. Not yet, he says. We toast after the powder's stowed and the sails repaired. The crew groans. You chew a final cracker, close your eyes, and whisper to yourself. That first swig better be worth it. The chaos is thick as molasses and twice as sticky. You've boarded the Spanish ship, grappling hooks still warm in your hand, and now you're ducking musket fire and lunging across slick planks like a knife-wielding cat with balance issues. But in the middle of all this, you're chewing. Yes, chewing. Because you didn't get time for a real breakfast, and your stomach chose violence right in the middle of combat. You fish into your satchel, fingers brushing past flint and lint until they close around something hard, flat, and wholly unappetizing. Hardtack. You know this biscuit. You've had your battles with it. You've cursed its name more than once. But right now, it's food, and food is fuel. You break off a piece with your teeth and immediately regret it. It's like gnawing on a barn door. A musket ball whizzes past. You duck behind a barrel, jaw still working. The biscuit cracks audibly, and you're sure at least 2 molars are now dust. You spit out a splinter. Either wood from the deck or the hardtack itself has developed its own splinters. Honestly, it's hard to tell. Historians love to debate whether hardtack was better than nothing or worse than starvation. You think it depends on the day. And today, it's just barely better than dying hungry. A second bite, this time dipped in a smear of what used to be fruit jelly. The The sweetness is faint, long evaporated, but it masks some of the biscuit's old sock flavor. You chew while paring a blade, swallow while rolling behind a broken mast. Somehow, the crunchy rhythm keeps your nerves in check. Someone shouts behind you. You glance back. Tiny Jack's eating too. He's gnawing on what looks like dried fish tied around a hunk of cassava. He catches your eye mid-fight and grins with a mouthful of salt and teeth. "Breakfast of champions," he yells. A Spanish sailor charges. You throw the remaining chunk of hardtack at him. It bounces off his forehead with a satisfying thunk. You follow with your cutlass. He stumbles. You win. Maybe hardtack is a weapon. Eli appears next, swinging a ladle like a mace. "I brought snacks," he says deadpan, tossing a small pouch at your feet before disappearing behind a sail. You open it. Inside, dried mango slices and chunks of smoked goat. You take a bite mid-run, the sweet-salty combo filling your mouth with a taste so vivid you almost forget where you are. The mango is leathery but tangy. The goat, chewy and spiced with what might be chili and definitely revenge. You suck on it while reloading your pistol, the flavor cutting through the gunpowder stink in your nose. Another explosion rocks the deck. You drop, roll, come up biting. The food is keeping you sharp. You're not hungry. You're here. A stray chicken darts across the planks, probably from the Spanish galley. You almost laugh, but you're too busy dodging a saber swipe. Still, you silently name the bird lunch. Down near the hold, the scent of spilled oil mingles with something warm and bready. You pass a galley hatch, still smoldering, and catch a glimpse of burned flatbread on a pan. It smells like breakfast and ash. You pause just long enough to yank it free, snap off a clean edge, and stuff in your mouth. It's scorched. It's perfect. It tastes like survival. One of your crewmates, bleeding but grinning, leans against a cannon, holding a tin of black olives looted from a crate. "Care for a bite?" he offers. You pop one into your mouth. Salty, briny. You're not sure how old it is. You don't care. It's delicious. You lick your fingers, reload your pistol, and keep moving. Pirates didn't eat gourmet mid-battle. They scavenged, they rationed, they chewed when they could. A handful of salted nuts, a strip of jerked meat, a bite of something edible and vaguely recognizable. That's what kept you standing when a cannonball sang. Historians still argue whether pirates carried food into battle as habit or necessity. You know the truth, it's both. A full stomach means focus. A small snack could buy you 10 more minutes of sharpness. And sometimes, a fig roll kept you from blacking out right when the first blade swung your way. You take one last bite of mango, stuff a second into your boot for later, and climb the quarterdeck. The Spanish are falling back. The prize is nearly yours. You stand on the rail, heart pounding, jaw working, the ghost of fruit and ash on your breath. This is it. You're greasy. You're bruised. You're slightly mango flavored. And you're winning. Who knew that chewing through a sea biscuit mid-boarding would be the power move? Your arms are heavy. Your shirt is soaked, mostly with seawater, partly with sweat, and maybe a little bit of someone else's blood. But you're standing. You're breathing. And the Spanish galleon is yours. The battle is over. And now, finally, the barrels are open. You hear it before you see it. The hiss of a cork pulled loose, the slosh of golden brown liquid splashing into wooden mugs, and then the low, collective groan of pure relief as the first sips hit grateful throats. Rum, not stolen, earned. You limp toward the galley where Eli's already lined up cups on a crate. No silver goblets here, just chipped mugs, coconut shells, and anything that can hold liquid. He hands you one. "Told you we'd make it," he mutters. The mug is warm from his hand. The smell? Sharp, sweet, a little medicinal. You raise in a quiet toast and take a swig. It burns. Not like fire, but like a match lit inside your chest. You can taste the molasses, the wood from the cask, even a ghost of spice for whatever barrel this came from. The second sip is easier. The third, well, now you're grinning. You made it. Someone starts laughing. Another sings half a verse of a shanty and promptly forgets the rest. A wounded deckhand raises his mug with a trembling hand and declares this the best breakfast I ever drank. The monkey steals a shot and falls off the boom. Nobody helps him. He's fine. Nearby, Tiny Jack is using a silver goblet he looted during the raid. It's a little bent. He doesn't care. He fills it with rum, sprinkles a bit of salt in it, and says, "Pirate's Gatorade." You try it. It's awful. You love it. There's food, too. Not just victory drink. The stolen stores are open now. Cheese wedges wrapped in wax, salted mango slices glistening in their brine, thin rice cakes still soft in their linen wrapping. Someone found a jar of pickled garlic cloves and passed them around like candy. You bite into a salted mango slice. It's chewy, tangy, with a sweet aftershock that hits the back of your throat like sunshine. It pairs absurdly well with the rum, and suddenly you're leaning against a rail, sipping and nibbling like royalty. Eli breaks out the victory stew, the last scrap of last night's pepper pot, thickened overnight into something almost unrecognizable. He ladles it into shells and mugs, passes it around. It's spicy, savory, and hits every sore, tired muscle with a wave of warmth. You swear it's more healing than the surgeon's poultices. A fire is lit on the prize ship's deck. Not for cooking, just for the comfort of it. The rain that threatened earlier fizzled out, and now the air hangs warm and humid. Rum fogs your breath, and the taste of mango lingers behind your teeth. Someone uncorks a second cask. This one's darker, richer. Eli says it's from the captain's private reserve, aged in mahogany. You take a sip and feel your knees go soft. Around you, the crew eats, drinks, collapses. Some laugh until they cry. Some cry until they laugh. You just sit there, sipping slowly, chewing on mango, and wondering how anything could ever taste this good again. Historians still debate how much pirates actually celebrated. Some say they spent days in drunken chaos. Others argue most just collapsed into hammocks and slept for 24 hours straight. In truth, probably both. Tonight, your crew toasts. To survival. To conquest. To mango and rum. Someone plays a fiddle missing 2 strings. It sounds like a dying cat. Everyone loves it. You lean back and watch the stars prick through the smoke. The sails are torn. The deck's a mess. The mast creaks like it's complaining. But you're full, you're warm, and the rum has settled into your bones like a lullaby. You're a pirate, a victorious one. You raise your cup one last time before sleep threatens to take you. To the feast, you whisper, and to the fools who didn't get any. The embers from the fire crackle softly in the still night air, casting a warm orange glow across the battered deck. You sit cross-legged, chewing on the last of a charred plantain that's somehow even sweeter now, post-battle. Your muscles ache in places you didn't know existed. But your belly is full, your cup is half full, and your nerves, once frayed and electric, have settled into a thick, syrupy calm. The storm passed. The fight's over, and there, on the edge of the deck, is a new kind of quiet. The Spanish ship, now yours, rocks gently beside your own. Crew members drift between the two like ghosts in search of hammocks, flasks, or friends. Some sing softly, others sleep where they fell, boots on, weapons near, expressions peaceful in the glow of victory and exhaustion. You see Eli across the deck, tending to a kettle that simmers one last batch of what he calls after-plume stew, a humble mix of leftover beans, smoked crab, and the last bit of root vegetable found stuffed behind a powder keg. He ladles out mugs with the care of a priest, each portion a slow-burning thank you to fate. You take yours and sit beside a bruised Spanish cook who doesn't speak a word of English, but accepts the stew with a grateful nod. You share a piece of cassava bread. He offers a sliver of manchego wrapped in oilcloth. No one says much. You just eat. Together. The sea makes equals of you all, eventually. You chew slowly, savoring each texture. The crust of the bread, the peppery warmth of the stew, the sharp salt of cheese that bites back just enough to remind you that yes, you're still alive. The monkey is asleep inside a stolen hat. Tiny Jack snores under a barrel with a chicken nestled against his side. Dagger Pete talks to the stars like they owe him answers. You're not sure they're listening, but they flicker just enough to feel like maybe they are. You pull your coat tighter, the wind's soft now, the kind of breeze that carries memories instead of warnings. Someone passes around a bottle of tamarind cordial, thick, sweet, and sticky as honey. You take a sip. It tastes like sunset turned into syrup. Historians still argue whether pirates ever found moments like this: peaceful, quiet, reflective. You smile into your mug. If they didn't, they missed out. This is what the food was for. Not just the stolen cheese, or the citrus wedges, or the stubborn hardtack that cracked a molar mid-boarding. It was for this moment, this peace, this stillness where every bite slows time and every sip tells your brain, you made it. The Spanish cook looks at you, raises his bowl, and says something soft. You don't understand the words. You don't need to. You raise your bowl back and knock it gently against his. The stars wheel overhead. The waves hush the hull like a mother's hand. You let out a long breath. The last of the pepper burns its way down. You lick your fingers, sigh, and lean back against the rail, your eyes slipping closed. The food's gone. The barrels are low, but your heart is full. And the next meal, whatever and whenever it comes, will taste better for having earned this one. Now the fire has cooled to embers, and the waves lap soft and slow against the hull. Your body sinks deeper into the wood beneath you, its grain warm from the day, like a whisper of the sun lingering long after it's gone. The air smells of salt, soot, and the last traces of stew clinging to empty bowls. Your eyelids grow heavy. The night wraps around you like a faded sail, stitched with stars and silence. Somewhere nearby, a spoon clinks gently in a pot. A lullaby for those who understand that rest, like food, is sacred after survival. Your breath evens out. Inhale the spice. Exhale the storm. The rooster's quiet. Even a monkey has stopped fussing. There's only the creak of ropes and the sigh of sails stretching like old bones, rocked by the ocean's steady rhythm. You remember the flavors: tart lime, rich pepper pot, salt on your lips, sweetness hidden in dried mango. And somehow, even now, your mind tastes them again, as if your dreams are seasoned, simmered, and ready to be served. This meal, this story, it fed you more than just hunger. It filled your sails. It steadied your hands. It reminded you that even among cannonballs and chaos, a shared bite of bread can be more powerful than gold. So now drift. Let your thoughts go quiet. No more pirates. No more powder. Just the hush of the sea, the hum of your breath, and the faint, fading taste of victory. Sleep well, sailor. Sweet dreams.